Okay. How's everybody doing? Last day? Ready to go home?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to make it good. We're going to make it quick and stay here within our time. So just as you listened, Crystal is not here. This is Lindsay. But I'm Rex Galbraith, CRO at Consensus. And this is Lindsay, and she's going to introduce herself in a second. But we're going to talk about the 3 techniques that helped us close 15 of the largest software companies in the world. So it started about 9 years ago. And we went from having an office to losing that office due to layoffs. We weren't hitting our numbers. And we ended up in a grocery store on the top of it. And it was really rough to tell people where I worked. The good thing was that my wife always had a good grocery list for me to bring home. And she didn't have to go grocery shopping for like a year. But the main thing that came from that is that there were a lot of failures that came from it that left clues for us to be able to close some of the biggest deals that range anywhere from 5 figures to 8 figures. And one of our clients actually has 10,000 active users, where just 3 years ago, our biggest client only had 150. So let's jump right into what these techniques are. The only way that I can really explain it to you is I have to show it to you. And we'll give you some ideas, but if you want to talk to us after this to get a little bit more insight, we'll show that to you. So technique number 1 is a lot of people know what ICP is, Ideal Customer Profile. What I would tell you guys to focus on is your UCP, your Unideal Customer Profile. Write down exactly what a bad customer is to you, and then you have to accept it. And if they come in and they want to give you money, you got to turn it away, which is really hard. We would take any customer, even if they fit or not, and it ended up hurting us. And about 3 years ago, we had a churn of about 40%. And once we started incorporating this UCP concept, we went from a 40% churn rate to an 8.5%. And so now, and that's going to continue throughout the year, and we'll probably improve on that in 2023. And so the next technique is number 2.
So my name is Lindsay Doherty. I'm a sales executive for Consensus. And I'm not going to claim to be Morpheus, but that meme looks eerily familiar to the conversations I've been having for the last 2 days. So a lot of you have said that you fit between that 30 and 50% of the sales meetings are either unqualified or premature, with some being a little bit higher. And we've actually gotten that down to 5%. We've done that by using a combination of tools and techniques like LinkedIn, heavy on video, and automation. And we do that in between live meetings. So when I'm prepping for a call, I'm sending my buyer a sneak peek at what I'm going to be presenting at the live meeting. It gives them a chance to digest the information and come to the call more educated and with specific questions and use cases. It's even helped them to understand what we're going to be talking about and who in their company should be invited to that call for relevancy. Tip number 3, I think.
Yep. So the last one is a big one, and this is a hard one to accept if you're a seller. Just by raise of hands, how many people here are sellers or have sold? So one of the things that is really fun to do is you get all the credit, all the praise when the deal closes, you get to ring the gong. But what's changed over the last 10 years is that the role between the buyer and the seller has flipped. The seller knows how the buying process works better than the buyer does, and the buyer knows how to sell internally better than the seller does. And once you accept the fact that it's really your executive sponsor or champion that is the one that's going to close the deal, you'll start seeing deals progress faster. And so we've learned through Gartner data and experience that 83% of the purchasing process happens without the seller present or the vendor present. So they're making a ton of these decisions without you there. So really what matters is how good your champion pitches your product. And so you have to enable them the same way that you're enabling your sales team. So your business case, your ability to sell is only as strong as your champion. And you have to make sure that you let your people know, your champions know, that you understand the buying process better than they do. It's hard for them to accept that. And most of the time if somebody says they know exactly what it takes to get a deal done, they probably don't. Especially in this climate where now CFOs are signing off on almost everything. It's changing constantly. It's very rarely that I've ever met a champion that has taken us from interest to close without hitting some roadblocks that they weren't aware of that I probably knew were coming before they did. So here's our 3 takeaways. This is how you take the red pill, and if you want to go down the rabbit hole. Number 1, create a UCP list. Write down exactly the type of customers that you should turn away, because you have to accept the fact that not all revenue is good revenue. And if you write it down, share it with your sales team, you have to make them believe and be bold enough to turn away certain business, which is really hard. When we were struggling, barely making payroll, and we could get a company to invest in us, and there was this belief that maybe we could make it work, it almost never did. And it made us look bad, it gave them a bad experience, and that resulted in us having 40% churn for the first 3 or 4 years I was with the company. And then number 2, is create videos and messages in between the meetings so that you're selling, we call it selling in the gaps. So most of your selling is happening when you're not live. So before your first meeting, after your second meeting, even before you sell, send little 1 to 3 minute videos recapping what you're going over. And we've used that with our own technology. You don't even need to use our own technology. And people always come to us and say, our first call always feels like a second call. And you'll progress the deal cycle. And then the last is accept the fact that you're not the one that's going to close the deal. Your champion is. And if you do that and you equip them and you're a good coach, you'll get deals done quicker. A lot of the stuff that I cited today is found here, so feel free to take a picture. You can use the QR code. The book on the left was written by our founder. If you come by our booth at 234, we'll get you a copy if you promise to read it. This Sales Engineering Workload and Compensation Guide, I quoted that as well. It talks about the standard ratio between sales engineers and sales reps, and the Gartner Insight as well. But I really appreciate you guys listening. I hope these pieces of information helped you. Lindsay, did I miss anything today?
Just from like a seller's perspective, I actually spent 5 years of my SaaS career without these techniques, and I was lucky enough to get access to them at my old company. And just for a benchmark, I went from being a good rep to not only breaking my own personal records, but earning a spot at their top rep. So more than impactful for my career, and I'm glad I could get access to it.
Perfect. Well, thanks, everybody. Travel safe today as you get home, and we appreciate you listening.
Thanks, guys.